Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. Thank you for bearing with me. My name's Alex Wagner. I am the author of Futureface, but by way of trade and experience and paychecks, the thing I do on a daily and monthly and yearly basis is journalism. Today, my work takes me to places like Reno, Nevada, and Hannibal, Missouri, and Orange County, California. It's really only when you spend a fair amount of time crisscrossing these United States that you get a sense of its vastness, which can be either humbling or it can be terrifying. And these days, our sense of shared humanity, the fundamental idea that while we're different, we're still in this thing together, that is frayed, and it may have even broken. We are two countries, and yet somehow we belong together. How are we both American? What does it even mean to be American these days? Who gets to be one of us and who is one of them? These are the fundamental questions in front of us right now on the airwaves and in classrooms across the country, and there are no easy answers. For the last few years, I've tried to get at that central idea. What does it mean to be American in this fractured 21st century landscape? It's a journey I've been on since adolescence, like so many others, searching for a sense of identity. I grew up a mixed-race kid, not really aware of the fact that I was a mixed-race kid. My mother was born in Rangoon, Burma, also known as Myanmar, a point so distant on the globe it seemed like Brigadoon, some kind of mist-covered utopia where bananas were served at tea time. My father's people, meanwhile, were from Ireland and Luxembourg. He had grown up in northeast Iowa in what can only be described as a Norman Rockwell postcard. His was an Irish Catholic household with 6 kids and a mother who served fish on Fridays and baked donuts on Sunday, and a father who delivered mail to rural Iowa mailboxes where everybody still knew his name. As an adolescent, I didn't think much about the improbability of these family histories or that I was in some way charged with their inheritance. But occasionally, I was reminded that the way that I saw myself, just another American kid who likes Chips Ahoy and Garfield, that was not how everyone else saw me. Like the short order cook who asked me at 12 years old if I was adopted, as if there was no way I could be from this place. Why didn't I belong in his idea of America? He certainly belonged in mine. It was a reminder that I was on the outside. By the time I was in high school, I'd found an identity that seemed to suit me. In November of 1993, Time magazine ran a cover with "The New Face of America," which kind of, if you squinted or were maybe legally blind, looked like me. Inside, the magazine explained how immigrants are shaping the world's first multicultural society. I was a sophomore in high school, and that cover was a revelation. I was the new face of America. Somehow I was a precursor sent from the future to show the people of America what they would all look like a few generations hence. Just as Time magazine promised, these parents of mine, one immigrant plus the child of some immigrants, they had created Futureface. I enrolled myself in this tribe with great gusto, just as America herself in the third quarter of the 20th century also found new purpose in celebrating multiculturalism on college campuses and beyond, with new literary canons and ethnic studies programs. But not everybody was on board. Conservatives started to attack this hybridized American education as a threat to our national identity. Even liberals recognized that the melting pot necessarily eliminated differences between cultures, and wasn't that too kind of a surrender in the culture wars? Most urgently, being a future face was lonely. It never answered that elusive but nonetheless pressing question: where did I actually belong? All over the country, all over campuses, students and young people like me are looking for that elusive sense of community, especially students who are mixed race, who don't fit neatly into one category or another, who look at the fractured American landscape and wonder what part of that belongs to me. But if divisions aren't the way to draw an irrefutable, satisfactory line around identity, what circle do you draw? I wondered if instead of trying to be the lonely avatar of the mixed-race utopia to come, I wondered if I could go back. I could search my own blood to find my people. Was there some part of my story that might offer the connection for which I'd been searching? My book is a story of that search into my past to find an identity in the present. Like so many other Americans in this moment in particular, I dove headfirst into ancestry and family trees and DNA tests to see if there might be something there to anchor me. I dug into my family archives with both rigor and actual interest. I plumbed the depths of my mother's and grandmother's recollections, and I cross-checked those memories with actual history. I interviewed my father and his sister and my cousins and their children, all in an attempt to unwind Wagner fiction from fact. I engaged in the old-fashioned art of genealogy, albeit with plenty of 21st century assists. From online archives and internet chat rooms, I looked at passenger manifests and wedding certificates and gravestone inscriptions. I consulted the National Park Service, and I consulted Yiddish language experts, and I looked for insanely arcane information that seemed at the time to be fairly life-changing. I went home again, at least to someone else's home. I put foot to soil all over the globe in an attempt to reconnect with the land, and perhaps by virtue of that, my people. And I harnessed science. I took DNA tests to tell me definitively where I had come from, as if that might unlock where I belonged and where I was headed. I had my parents take DNA tests. I had my grandmother take DNA tests. But it never really fundamentally answered that question. Who are our people? For me, the ultimate answer to that ended up being both complicated and obvious. And as I've traveled the country talking to men and women who've read this book, people, especially the ones who don't fit easily into categories and who've spent time wondering how they fit into the great American narrative, they've told me about their own journeys, about how meaningful it is to know that we are in search of many of the same things. I can't tell you how many times I've been signing books and someone comes up with a glint of irony and satisfaction in her eyes and says, "Alex, I'm a Futureface too." We are not alone in this voyage. I hope that the most questioning among us, the ones leaving home for the first time, entering the world of adulthood, first-year students experiencing independence as something that's both intimidating and glorious, I hope they will come to know the truth that I found after all the travel and science and searching, which is we end up together, even if it takes longer than we think to get there. Cut!
Cut!
Thanks,
all right.
guys!
You got it.